Great. I think with that we can get started. Hello and welcome everyone. I am Manoswini Sarkar. I am the Senior Energy Policy Officer at BirdLife International and the coordinator of the Energy Task Force. So we're organizing this event on mitigating renewable energy impacts in the Americas by the Energy Task Force, which is hosted by the UN Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals. So before we jump into the webinar, I would like to run you through some quick housekeeping. As you see, the meeting is being recorded, and I would request everyone to mute yourselves when a speaker is presenting so you can hear them clearly. Also, after the end of the presentation, you can use the raise hand feature in Zoom to ask questions, or while the presenter is already presenting, you can also type them in the chat and we'll take them up at the end of the presentations. Just one last thing, there is interpretation available between Portuguese to English and Spanish to English. To choose that, you can basically go down in the options menu. There should be a little icon with interpretation. If you're joining from your Windows or Mac OS option, you can click on the interpretation and you can click the language that you would like to hear. Optionally, you can also hear only the interpreted language. To do that, you can mute the original audio so you can only hear the interpreters. And if you want to choose between, if you signed on through your phone, the options are quite similar. You can click on the language interpretation, and then you can tap the language that you want to hear, and also optionally toggle to the mute original audio, and then click done. So there is a quick sneak peek into the agenda. As you see, we have quite a few interesting presentations for you today, which will be a mix of the amazing things that the ETF members are doing, and also a bunch of tools that we've been utilizing within the Energy Task Force, and also the task force is developed. And towards the end, we have a 15-minute question and answer session where we'll take up questions by the audience. With this, I would like to introduce Mr. Ivan Ramirez, who's the head of the avian species at the Convention of Migratory Species, who will give you a small background of the Energy Task Force. So please, Ivan.
Many thanks, Manasvini, and good morning, good afternoon, or even good evening to all of you. First of all, I have to say, I see that we are 101 participants online, which is quite amazing. So really glad to see these numbers attending the webinar. Second, if that is okay, I will choose this time to use Spanish as the language for my 3 slides. So I give you some time just in case you need to switch into the interpretation. But I think it's good that we also use some other UN languages. So mi nombre es Iván Ramírez, soy el director, ahora voy a mezclarlos, soy el director del programa de aves de la CMS, de la Convención para las Especies Migradoras, y es un honor estar aquí en este taller específico del Grupo de Trabajo de Energía, dedicado sobre todo a las actividades en América o en Latinoamérica en particular, que es una de las prioridades que fueron identificadas dentro de la ETF ya hace 2-3 años, y de la que desde luego estamos muy orgullosos, tanto en cómo ha ido avanzando ETF como de la implicación de los países americanos. Y bueno, prueba de ello es que tenemos el honor de contar con André como el presidente de ETF desde hace bien poco, y que en nuestra COP, como puedes ver en el background de mi propia presentación, se realiza en Brasil. Son apenas 3 diapositivas por mi parte. La primera, siempre nos gusta introducir un poco lo que es CMS. Es el único tratado de Naciones Unidas que se focaliza en la protección de las especies migradoras. El tratado fue establecido en 1979 y es administrado, aunque es anterior al Programa de Medio Ambiente de Naciones Unidas, UNEP. Y el mandato concreto para el Grupo de Trabajo de Energía, o ETF por sus siglas en inglés, viene de la COP11, concretamente a través de la resolución 11.27 de energía renovable y especies migratorias. Esta resolución fue modificada en la COP13 y ya puedo adelantar que en la COP15 hay una propuesta para también tener algunos cambios en la resolución aparte de las decisiones. Como les digo, es la única task force dedicada exclusivamente al nexo entre especies migradoras y las energías renovables y por lo tanto digamos que es un grupo de trabajo pionero y que está creciendo mucho a nivel global. Y en la parte inferior derecha pueden encontrar el link para nuestra página web que bueno, se hará referido a lo largo de las diapositivas, pero que desde luego contiene toda la información. Siguiente diapositiva, next slide, please. Bueno, en esta diapositiva podemos ver un poquito en qué consiste el trabajo del grupo de trabajo de energía. Sobre todo, lo más importante que siempre decimos es que la plataforma del grupo de trabajo es una plataforma en la cual lo que queremos es que exista sobre todo diálogo, que exista diálogo entre organizaciones internacionales, organizaciones dedicadas a la financiación, ONGs, mecanismos internacionales de cooperación, etcétera. Y en estos momentos tenemos más de 20 países, tanto partes como no partes de la CMS. Esto es algo muy importante que siempre insistimos. No es necesario ser parte de CMS para ser miembro de un grupo de trabajo, en este caso de la ETF. Y lo que queremos sobre todo es que sea una plataforma global que represente claramente cada una de las necesidades o de la propia idiosincrasia de cada región. ETF, digamos que comenzó en una zona más euroasiática y rápidamente se identificó que necesitábamos expandirnos a intentar conocer cuáles son las necesidades de Oceanía, Índico, África Meridional y del Sur y América. Eso es lo que estamos haciendo en estos momentos. Lo que la ETF intenta sobre todo reunir experiencias positivas en relación a cómo conseguir una transición ecológica justa y la implementación de energía renovable sin que esto represente ningún tipo de amenaza para las especies migratorias. Y lo hacemos sobre todo apoyando sinergias, trabajando mucho con otros tratados multilaterales de ambiente, por ejemplo, CBD o la Convención del Clima, pero también la de desertificación. Y lo que queremos es que todas estas organizaciones colaboren con nosotros y que nos digan qué es lo que están haciendo para conseguir llegar lo más rápidamente posible a países y estructuras internacionales. Y sobre todo lo que queremos es que nuestra página web y nuestro trabajo se refleje en un conocimiento que sea de fácil acceso. Así que en nuestra página web, y esa es la última diapositiva. Next slide, please, Manasvini. Nuestra página web lo que tiene sobre todo es muchísima información, tanto de las reuniones que realizamos de forma anual, como los seminarios que realizamos online o presencial, como el que estamos realizando hoy, y muchísima información que a veces es producida directamente por CMS, pero otras por los miembros de la ETF en planificación espacial, en parques eólicos, en líneas eléctricas, en energía solar, en muchos casos específicos que tienen que ser muy importantes para cada una de las regiones, o en guías que pueden ser del momento previo a la construcción de una infraestructura de energía renovable, como al paso posterior que necesita monitorización. Toda esta información es constantemente actualizada y, de hecho, una de las prioridades que tenemos es reorganizar esta información, y esto es lo que vamos a hacer a lo largo de este año y el que viene, intentar que también sea accesible a nivel de regiones, porque obviamente ni las especies ni las necesidades son iguales en una región que en otra. Así que, bueno, simplemente me quedo por aquí. Next slide. Y con mucho gusto que me gustaría introducir a dos personas que van a continuar con la agenda en este momento. Desde luego, dar la bienvenida y agradecer a João Paulo Capobianco, que es el secretario ejecutivo del Ministerio de Medio Ambiente y de Cambio Climático y además presidente de nuestra COP, COP15, que va a comenzar en muy poco tiempo en Campo Grande, en Brasil. Y también a nuestro presidente de la ETF, nuestro chair durante la reunión de hoy también, André Luis Campos de Andrade, que es el director de programas en el Ministerio de Medio Ambiente y Cambio Climático y también, como os he dicho, presidente del grupo de trabajo de CMS. Así que nada más, gracias por la atención y desde luego que estamos disponibles para responder a cualquier duda. Over to you, Manasvini.
Thank you, Ivan. Andre, would you like to come in next?
Yeah, sure. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is André Andrade. I'm, as introduced by Ivan, I'm Program Director at the Ministry of Environment in Brazil, and also since last October, I was appointed as chair of the ETF. It's a pleasure. It's my first meeting as chair of this task force, and I'm very proud and happy to be here with you and moderate this panel. Mr. Capobianco will join us soon. He was in another meeting and he just let me know that he's just coming to the meeting. So I will give some words and then we can pass to him. So it's as a chair of the CMS Energy Task Force, I'm particularly pleased to see the conversation taking place here today ahead of our CMS COP15 in Brazil, which will be in the city of Campo Grande, right in the Pantanal region. This will be the first time of a CMS conference is held in Brazil, and it offers a unique opportunity to strengthen international cooperation around one of the most important challenges of our time, reconciling the rapid expansion of renewable energy with the protection of migratory species. Across the Americas, we are witnessing an unprecedented transformation of our energy systems. Countries throughout the region are expanding solar, wind, and other renewable technologies at a remarkable speed. This transition is essential for addressing climate change and achieving the goals of the Paris Agreement. But at the same time, our region hosts some of the world's most important migratory corridors, supporting hundreds of species that depend on safe and connected ecosystems across national boundaries. This reality requires careful planning and strong cooperation. Renewable energy expansion and biodiversity conservation cannot be seen as a competing objectives. They must advance together. And this is precisely where the CMS ETF plays a critical role. This task force brings together governments, international organizations, scientists, financial institutions, and the private sector to develop solutions that allow renewable energy infrastructure to be deployed while minimizing risk to migratory species. As chair of the ETF, I see two main priorities guiding our work in the coming years. First, we must focus on implementing the ETF working plan for 2025-2032 in all of its pillars. We have 7 pillars. Our working plan begins with priority setting, ensuring that our work responds to the most urgent challenges. It seeks to build synergies with other multilateral environmental agreements and initiatives across the CMS family, strengthening coordination at the international level. It promotes the development of scientific guidance and further research, expanding the evidence base needed to inform planning and mitigation decisions. At the same time, the work plan aims to mainstream migratory species conservation into corporate and financial decision-making, recognizing the key role of industry and financial institutions in shaping the energy transition. It also focuses on mobilizing financial resources to support the implementation of our activities. Two additional pillars are particularly important as we move forward: expanding the regional and international reach at the task force, and strengthening outreach and knowledge exchange with relevant stakeholders. Together, these pillars provide a comprehensive framework for turning knowledge into practical solutions. But a work plan only becomes meaningful when it is implemented. My priority as chair is therefore to ensure that these pillars translate into concrete operation, joint initiatives, and a real-world impact. The second priority of ours is to increase the visibility, membership, and strategic relevance of the ETF. The global energy transition is accelerating, and with it, the need of credible platforms where governments, industries, financiers, and scientists come together to discuss practical solutions for addressing the environmental impacts of renewable energy infrastructure. The ETF has the potential to become a leading international forum for dialogue on the nature-energy nexus, particularly regarding the impacts of renewable energy on migratory species. To achieve this, we must continue promoting the work of the task force in key international forums, strengthening engagement with financial institutions and the private sector, and expanding participation from regions where renewable energy expansion is accelerating. The upcoming Brazilian presidency of CMS COP15 offers an important opportunity to advance in this objective. Brazil intends to use this moment to highlight the importance of ecological activity and strengthen international cooperation on the conservation of migratory species. By leveraging the visibility of COP15, we hope to further consolidate the Energy Task Force as a key platform for cooperation, knowledge exchange, and practical action. Today's webinars contribute directly to that effort. By focusing on the Americas, we highlight a region that combines extraordinary biodiversity with enormous renewable energy potential. I stop here. Maybe if we could check if Mr. Capobianco is already in. Capobianco?
Hi, I'm here.
Okay. So I will, Manojvini, I will give the floor to Capobianco, our COP15 president, and was announced before also Vice Minister of the Environment in Brazil. Capobianco, the floor is yours.
Thank you, André. And thank you, Ivan, for your introductional speech. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to welcome you all to this seminar, convened as a pivotal moment in this, as we prepare the COP15 in Brazil. Just a moment, please, just a moment. I'm sorry, I have a logistical problem here. But well, for the first time, the Conference of the Parties on the Convention on Migratory Species will be hosted in Brazil, the most biodiverse country, and at the gates of the Pantanal, one of the planet's most vibrant and ecologically significant biomes. This is not merely a logistical milestone. It's a political statement, and it demands leadership that connects ambition with responsibility. Migratory species cross borders, as you said. They connect ecosystems, economies, and cultures. Their protection cannot be achieved by isolated national efforts. Cooperation is the core principle on the convention, and it must be the defining feature of the COP15. Hosting COP15 is both a privilege and a commitment. It signals Brazil's determination to place ecological connectivity at the center of global environmental governance. The slogan of the COP15, Connecting Nature to Sustain Life, reflects a simple but powerful truth. When we protect migratory routes, we protect ecosystems. When we protect ecosystems, we protect human well-being. At the same time, we must recognize the scale of the transformation underway in our region. The Americas are entering a profound energy transition. Renewable energy is now the dominant source of a new power capacity worldwide. South America has the potential to approach a near fully renewable electricity systems by mid-century, under accelerated scenarios. North America continues a large-scale expansion in wind, solar, and storage. Central America and the Caribbean are steadily unlocking new renewable potential. Brazil stands at the forefront of this transformation. More than 89% of our electricity generation comes from renewable sources. Solar power is expanding at a remarkable speed. Renewable now represents around 50% of Brazil's overall energy metrics, a historic achievement for a country of continental dimensions and with a complex economy. These numbers reflect deliberate public policy choices. They reflect a national commitment to climate action consistent with the Paris Agreement. But leadership in climate action must also be leadership in biodiversity protection. The Americas host some of the world's most important migratory corridors. Over 1,100 species are covered under the convention, including birds, terrestrial and marine mammals, fish, reptiles, and even insects. Brazil itself is a critical hotspot for migratory species, linking ecosystems across the hemisphere. This reality places a responsibility on us. If renewable infrastructure is not carefully planned and seeded, it can generate unintended impacts, habitat fragmentation, collision risks, and cumulative pressures along flyways and marine routes. The challenge before us is not to slow the energy transition. It is to make a smarter, more integrated, and more sustainable process. Brazil believes that renewable energy expansion and migratory species conservations are not mutually exclusive objectives. On the contrary, they must advance together. This requires science-based spatial planning, strengthening environmental assessment, early integration and biodiversity criteria into energy policies, and the deployment of innovative risk mitigation tools. COP15 must, therefore, symbolize a new phase, providing from connectivity as a concept to connectivity as implementation. Conferences at the parties are not merely diplomatic gatherings. They are where species are added to international protection regimes, where cooperative instruments are created, and where concrete measures to reduce cross-cutting threats are adopted. In Campo Grande, in the state of Mato Grosso do Sul, we expected between 2,000 and 3,000 participants. The Blue Zone will host the formal negotiations and ministerial decisions, but COP15 will also extend beyond national negotiations rooms. Through the Connections Without Borders initiative, we will engage society, translate global biodiversity commitments into public understanding, and highlighting the role of all Brazilian biomes, especially the Pantanal, in sustaining the ecological connectivity. Brazil intends for COP15 to be remembered not only as the first CMS COP held in our country, but as a turning point for cooperative implementation. A COP that strengthens coordination across governments, financial institutions, private sector, academia, and civil society. A COP that demonstrates that climate mitigation, biodiversity conservation, and sustainable development are pillars of the same strategy. The world is looking for examples on how to reconcile infrastructure expansion with nature protection. The Americas can provide that example. Brazil is ready to assume its responsibility in building it. Let us work together to ensure that COP15 becomes a milestone of cooperation and that our region emerges as a global reference for an energy transition that is fast, fair, and firmly grounded in ecological connectivity. I wish you good discussion in this web seminar. We look forward to welcome you to Brazil and to advancing these objectives together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Capobianco, for your initial words. Thank you very much for joining us. And now we will start the discussion. Before I invite our first speaker, just a brief note in terms of time management. I will give speakers a 2-minute warning before their time is up, just to help a smooth transition between presentations. So I would now like to invite Ms. Maria Estela Nucci from the IFC of the World Bank to the floor. She will deliver a 15-minute presentation providing an overview of the evolution of renewable energy in the region and the role of multilateral development banks in supporting a nature-safe renewable energy transition. Maria Estela, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Andre. I'd like also to invite and to join me in this presentation my colleague Miguel Toledo. Miguel, are you connected?
Yes, I'm here. I'm connected.
Great. So Miguel and I will do a bit of a double act. I am a biodiversity specialist in the World Bank Group ENS Risk Unit. And Miguel is on the industry side. So I'll leave the floor now to Miguel to give you more of the industry outlook, and then I'll follow up with some mitigation practices learned through IFC's work in the last few years.
Very good. Thank you, Stella. So my name is Miguel Toledo. I'm responsible for the energy business of IFC across Latin America. And as part of the World Bank, IFC as the private arm of the World Bank, part of our development mandate, specifically in the energy sector, is to support the energy transition globally through private sector investment. So I'm going to give you just a 5-minute round of the status of renewable energy in Latin America. And then Estela will follow. So why Latin America matters? I think today Latin America is already the greenest power region globally. If you look at the share of renewables in Latin America, it has grown from around 50% of electricity capacity to around 70% in the last 10 years. And almost 80% of the new additions have been renewable energy. But the story is not that it's just renewable, it's what type of renewables. If you look at the region has been blessed by very good resources. So until 10 years ago, it was dominated by large hydros, complemented by thermal oil and gas plants. And wind and solar was limited to a few countries that were pioneers, such as Brazil and Chile. However, in the last decade, it's been changing significantly. The addition of wind and solar massively has changed the matrix. Today, wind and solar represent around 20% of the generation of the region. And what's the reason for that? The reason is, first of all, the region has fantastic resources for solar and wind. Some of the resources in some countries are tier 1 globally, especially places like Brazil, Chile, Argentina, Mexico, to some extent Peru and Colombia. That's number one. Second, the cost of the technology has come down significantly. And today, renewables in all markets are competitive on its own. Renewables are setting the marginal price of the systems, and do not need to enjoy any subsidy or any preferential treatment. And it also, the region has been also like benefited from very good hydro resources. However, as we know, large hydro especially has becoming much more difficult to implement, not only because of volatility related to climate, especially adaptation and mitigation, but also because of the long lead times and huge environmental concerns about new hydro. So that's why the growth in renewables is going to be in renewables. The many auctions that have been done in many countries across the region have shown declining prices over the last years. So I think we will continue to see development of renewable energy. The main problem that has been to reach very high levels of these technologies has been always the intermittency and seasonality of the resource, and the need to have firm capacity in the systems to deal with changes in hydrology, changes in wind patterns, and of course the lack of solar production during the peak hours at night. However, the development of battery storage technologies and the prices that are coming down on such technologies will allow further penetration of wind and solar, with the aim of reduce the role of gas and other thermal technologies in the long run. Some of the key challenges that we're seeing in the sector, number one is there's a lot of congestion and starting to see curtailment. So basically spilling over of resources that can't be utilized because there is overproduction and lack of transmission capacity, especially at certain times of the day of the year. This has been very acute in some countries, one of them being Brazil. This requires a lot more investments, planning and execution of investments in the transmission sector by countries. The transmission is lagging behind generation, and also to start implementing more rapidly storage systems. Chile is one of the cases where this has been very clear, where the lack of transmission has created massive problems in terms of high prices and inefficient use of resources, which have been kind of starting to be corrected through the use of battery storage. The second challenge is probably policy and regulation. Regulation needs to keep up with the markets. Markets are all often ahead of the regulation, and not only in the development of regulation for things like batteries, as I mentioned before, but for instance, distributed generation, solar rooftop. That's also one of the subsegments that is growing significantly. Solar rooftop and sort of behind the meter solutions, and regulation needs to adjust to those. And the next one is climate exposure. Clearly, droughts that affect hydro production, climate adaptation and mitigation concerns are important. And finally, social and environmental permitting, biodiversity concerns, social related to consultation, indigenous communities, use of land. Those are permanent matters in the development of new projects. And finally, what we're seeing in the future, in addition to this, is the development of, again, as I said, energy storage, green hydrogen, with Chile, Brazil being low-cost global producers, Paraguay also with projects, countries that have very low cost of electricity, and in often cases internal demand. are going to drive this sector. Offshore wind, we're starting to see regulatory frameworks for it in Brazil and Colombia. Cost is not there yet, and they're not competitive in the region, but it's going to come soon, in the next decade probably. And finally, electrification. How city electrification, electric vehicle use that will increase the demand. I'll stop here and go back to Estela. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Miguel, for the context. I think my presentation is going to be shared. Thank you so much. Okay, next slide, please. So as Miguel was mentioning, obviously, with the expansion of the industry and the sector at large, our concern is linked to the sustainability of this project, not only in terms of climate, but at 360 degrees. And to verify the IFC, to align and verify these projects towards really our goals in development, applies some standards that are called the performance standards. And there is one specific to biodiversity protection, but it's not the only one. These standards are not only applied by the IFC across the world, but they're also applied by many other financial institutions, in particular those that are signatory of the Equator Principles. You can give one click, please. Thank you. So that's the performance standard on biodiversity, performance standard 6. Another click, please. And the aim of performance standard 6 is really to protect priority biodiversity values. And when we look at renewable projects, in particular wind power projects and the associated power lines that come with them, the likely priority biodiversity values most at risk are usually birds and bats. We assess these impacts against a biodiversity baseline that is collected before project implementation. And then we try and understand what are the risks to these values and how to apply the mitigation hierarchy. So first, how to avoid impacts on these priority values, how to reduce them as much as possible to minimize them, and then understand whether there's anything residual that needs to be compensated for. And we have different objectives depending on the level of sensitivity or the level of priority of these biodiversity values affected by projects. And those are a net gain when we have critical habitats, and a non-net loss when we have natural habitats. Next slide, please. Now, applying these principles that we have that are global and replicable to any kind of industry, any kind of sector, any kind of environmental context, initially posed some challenges on renewable energy, and in particular, what we were saying, wind farms and power lines networks, because really the differently from other sectors, the impacts happen in the airspace, and the aerial nature really requires a distinctive thinking around biodiversity risks and how to manage them. And the condition of the terrestrial context might really be telling us nothing about the conditions that we find in the airspace. And another key aspect of this industry is that the risks for biodiversity values, it's not only linked, and in fact is probably less linked to construction phase, but rather through the operational life of projects. As birds get impacted and bats get impacted by rotating turbines or lines and poles and so on. Next, please. So I've summarized some of the key considerations that we keep in mind for managing biodiversity risks. and some key aspects that are peculiar to this sector. So early desktop screening biodiversity risk, this is a classic for really anything, and it's about siting and understanding what's in the landscape and how the siting can be done in a way that most of the impacts can just be avoided.
Maria,
Also
2
robust.
minutes. Sorry, Maria, to interrupt you. 2 minutes left, okay?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So robust baselines, I just want to mention that carefulness on the right methodologies for bats, acoustic monitoring is most likely the most effective. For wind projects, it's important to factor in energy yield assessments. It's important to de-risk power lines, so like bearing collector lines and making sure that design integrates ways to minimize electrocution and collision risks. And then after the project is actually up and running, it's really important to have rigorous fatality monitoring paired with adaptive management so that based on the fatality records, the management of projects can be adapted and changed and improved. Next, please. So I'm not going to talk about this because you will see these in a few moments, but there are plenty of tools to do that early screening of biodiversity that I just mentioned. Next, please. At IFC, we have developed together with other financial institutions and a variety of experts, good practice documents and tip sheets. The latest, so there's one on post-construction fatality monitoring that has been published a few years ago now, still extremely relevant, and that's still what we use as good industry practice for projects. And most recently, just less than a month ago, we've also published the Preventing Electrocution Risk for birds on distribution lines. I invite you all to look at this resource. It's really trying to sum up and translate highly technical expertise that is out there into concise, actionable items for non-specialists, and really has been developed to keep in mind that the design, the retrofitting of lines is key to prevent electrocution, especially of raptors, but other birds as well. And you know, it's a topic that it's of interest not only by the hyper specialists, by for the lenders and for the general environmental specialists. So I had to rush through this. The document is online, and we welcome you to have a look and reach out to us. We have presence globally and in Latin America as well to follow up on discussions on these mitigation measures. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria Stella, for your interesting presentation. I will now give the floor to Ms. Verônica Gomes from the Brazilian Energy Research Company, who will provide an overview of the evolution of renewables energy in Brazil and mitigation through planning. Verônica, the floor is yours, por favor.
Obrigada, André. Bom dia a todos e todas. Eu gostaria de apresentar aqui um pouquinho para vocês as nossas iniciativas no âmbito do governo federal, na área de energia, em que nossos estudos de planejamento já trazem algumas preocupações com a biodiversidade, então, algumas medidas de mitigação na expansão das infraestruturas de energia. Next, please. Então, a EPE, onde eu trabalho, a Empresa de Pesquisa Energética, é uma empresa pública federal associada ao Ministério de Minas e Energia, e a gente desenvolve estudos e estatísticas sobre energia para apoiar a política pública, a implementação e a formulação de política pública no Brasil. Next. Agora, semana passada, foi colocado em consulta pública o Plano Decenal de Expansão de Energia, PDE 2035. E esse é o principal instrumento de planejamento da expansão da energia no Brasil, que é produzido pela EPE. E nesse PDE 2035, a gente traz o parque elétrico instalado e a expansão prevista até 2035, ou seja, os próximos 10 anos. A gente pode ver que a base é hidrelétrica, mas a gente tem uma participação grande de eólica e solar fotovoltaica. É importante falar que esse gráfico aqui só está mostrando as fontes de energia elétrica, da matriz elétrica, conectadas aos parques de geração, conectados ao grid nacional, ou seja, o sistema interligado nacional. Mas a gente sabe que tem também geração distribuída, que são aqueles painéis solares em telhados de estabelecimentos comerciais e residências, que não estão contabilizados aqui, mas também tem um crescimento muito grande no Brasil. Posso? Então, nesse plano decenal de expansão de energia, nesse PDE 2035, a gente faz uma análise dessa expansão, inclusive no território, essa expansão espacial, de maneira espacial. Então, hoje a gente tem, para eólicas, 1.114 parques eólicos instalados e operando, e a gente tem a previsão de instalar mais 16 parques eólicos, mais um montante de energia que é considerado indicativo. A gente não sabe ainda onde exatamente vai estar, mas para a eólica vai estar na região Nordeste. Próximo. Para a solar fotovoltaica, hoje a gente tem 613 parques solares e a perspectiva é instalar mais 74 parques solares, mais uma expansão indicativa nas regiões Centro-Oeste e Sudeste. Próximo. Próximo. Desculpa, pode voltar por favor?
One before?
Yes. Então, para conectar todos esses parques ao sistema interligado, ao grid nacional, a gente tem as linhas de transmissão. Então, hoje a gente já tem instalado uma grande rede de transmissão de mais de 190 mil quilômetros de linhas de transmissão, e a gente ainda tem a previsão de instalar mais de 28 mil quilômetros para fazer essa conexão entre as regiões do Brasil. Próximo. E a gente publica, junto com o corpo principal, o documento principal do PDE 2035, a gente publicou uma nota técnica de análise socioambientais das fontes de energia e das infraestruturas de energia. Mas como o PDE é um plano indicativo, não determinativo, a gente faz recomendações para a mitigação dos impactos dessa infraestrutura, nessa nota técnica. Eu trouxe aqui nesse quadro alguns exemplos de alguns impactos e para os quais a gente faz algumas recomendações. Então, para eólicas, a gente sabe que um dos impactos mais recorrentes é a perda de aves e morcegos por colisão. E a mitigação ou estratégia que a gente indica são paradas programadas, que é uma prática já realizada em outros países, mas no Brasil a gente não tem isso ainda muito bem implementado, né, recorrente. E essa parada seria a partir da aproximação de bandos de aves. Para solar e para transmissão, nós temos um impacto que é bastante semelhante, que é a perda de vegetação e a perda de hábitat, né, com remoção de vegetação para a instalação dessas infraestruturas. Então, para solar, a gente recomenda que sejam selecionadas áreas já degradadas para a instalação dos parques solares, que nem sempre acontece, mas é uma recomendação forte. E para linhas de transmissão, a gente recomenda que seja removida a vegetação somente no entorno da torre e não ao longo de toda a linha. E a gente também faz recomendações para o planejamento espacial dos projetos, para a articulação institucional e para a regulação, especialmente para o licenciamento ambiental, para o processo de licenciamento ambiental. Próximo. Eu trouxe também aqui algumas ferramentas de planejamento espacial, que a gente sabe que o planejamento espacial ele é o mais efetivo, porque ele consegue prevenir impactos, né? E na hierarquia de mitigação de impactos, a prevenção é a mitigação mais eficiente. Então, porque você consegue evitar que ocorram impactos nas áreas mais sensíveis. Então, no planejamento espacial, a gente tem essa possibilidade, e eu trouxe para vocês, então, uma ferramenta de planejamento espacial e alguns estudos que a gente desenvolve na EPE de planejamento espacial. Próximo. A ferramenta que eu trouxe aqui hoje é a BuildVap. Ela está disponível no site da EPE e é uma ferramenta de planejamento de projetos, de alocação de projetos. Então, a gente reuniu algumas bases de dados espaciais com áreas importantes para a biodiversidade e é possível, através dessa ferramenta da folha, onde está essa seta vermelha que está indicando um botãozinho com uma folhinha desenhada. Acionando essa ferramenta, a gente consegue desenhar uma linha ou um polígono ou um ponto onde eu estou pretendendo planejar que seja alocado o meu projeto e verificar a sobreposição à distância para algumas áreas importantes para a biodiversidade. Aqui nesse exemplo, por exemplo, eu desenhei esse polígono e ele está sobrepondo a uma IBA. Então, é uma ferramenta interessante para esse planejamento do projeto e tentar evitar áreas importantes para a biodiversidade. Próximo.
Verônica, 2 minutos, por favor.
Para os planejamentos de transmissão, de linha de transmissão, a gente tem estudos específicos para cada linha de transmissão. Então, eu trouxe esse exemplo aqui dessa linha, que é bastante extensa, que ela precisava conectar duas subestações, uma no Nordeste, outra no Sudeste, e teria 2.500 quilômetros de extensão. Próximo. Nesse estudo, então, são considerados cobertura e uso do solo, áreas protegidas, formações vegetais, IBAs, várias camadas espaciais para analisar corredores alternativos para ligar esses dois pontos, essas duas subestações. Nesse caso, essa linha, como é muito extensa, os corredores tinham 50 quilômetros de largura. E aqui eu trouxe um exemplo de uma área sensível para a biodiversidade, inclusive para aves, que é a área de vida da arara azul de Lear, que é uma espécie extremamente sensível à instalação de linhas de transmissão, e todos os corredores já partiram do pressuposto de desviar dessa área de vida da arara azul de Lear. Então, são um exemplo de uma questão sensível que é desviada, e nessa análise, então, foi selecionado o corredor preto, achurado, como o melhor corredor a ser estudado em estudos posteriores, que vão estudar o melhor traçado dentro desse corredor. Então, ainda vai ter um outro estudo para especificar melhor essa linha, também tentando fugir de áreas sensíveis para a biodiversidade e para questões sociais e econômicas também. Próximo. E mais recentemente a gente está estudando a eólica offshore, fazendo uma série de estudos de planejamento de eólica offshore. O Brasil tem um potencial muito grande, que vai de 700 a 1.200 gigawatts para a instalação dessa infraestrutura de eólica offshore. E só para ter uma base, hoje a capacidade instalada total do Brasil é 255 gigawatts. Então, para a gente ver como é grande esse potencial. E na série de esforços de regulamentação e de planejamento, a gente sabe que a principal questão a ser discutida é a cessão de áreas marinhas. E para planejar a cessão de áreas marinhas, a EPE desenvolveu uma metodologia para selecionar as melhores áreas em termos energéticos, econômicos e socioambientais. E dentro dessa metodologia, a gente tem um esforço de mapeamento de sensibilidades. E nesse mapeamento de sensibilidades, então, a gente vai considerar áreas de ocorrência de aves marinhas sensíveis à colisão com aerogeradores de eólico offshore e também áreas de mamíferos sensíveis também aos impactos da eólico offshore. Próximo. Aqui eu só deixei alguns QR codes para material que a gente tem no site, que é um material de divulgação científica. Infelizmente, por enquanto, ainda está só em português. A gente pretende traduzir para o inglês e para o espanhol. E as redes sociais da EPE, onde vocês podem conseguir mais informações sobre planejamento energético. Obrigada.
Obrigado, Verônica. Thank you very much for your interesting presentation providing this Brazilian overview of renewables and the way we are mitigating impact. We now move to the next speaker. It's my pleasure to invite to the floor Ms. Raquel Carvalho from SAVE Brazil. She will say some words about the introduction of a Save Brazil Flyway project. Raquel, the floor is yours, please.
Obrigada, André. Agradecendo aqui muito o convite para falar do projeto Flyways Brasil, da SAVE, junto com a BirdLife, vários apoiadores também, vários parceiros. Próximo slide, por favor, vou tentar ser breve na minha apresentação. Next, please. Esse projeto está inserido dentro do programa de aves vinícolas da SAVE Brasil, e esse programa, no qual eu sou a gerente, ele tem praticamente 4 projetos, né, distribuídos como no mapa, demonstrado no mapa ao lado. Então, temos projeto na Costa Norte, Maranhão e Pará, temos projeto na Bacia Potiguar, no Rio Grande do Norte, que é o Flyways Brasil, que a gente vai falar hoje, o ISS Brasil, que usa uma ferramenta de ciência cidadã para fazer monitoramento das aves vinícolas, e o projeto Lagoa do Peixe, no Rio Grande do Sul. Esse programa está ativo na SAVE Brasil desde 2015, com acesso a várias políticas públicas, com parcerias, com sobreposições. Next, please. A história do próprio programa de limícolas da SAVE Brasil se coincide com o nascimento do projeto Flyways Brasil. Como que nasceu esse projeto? Esse projeto nasceu através de um contato feito na época, em 2015, na época, o Instituto Iberdrola entrou em contato com a SAVE, hoje o Instituto Neoenergia, pedindo, requisitando, estudando a possibilidade de replicar um modelo de monitoramento com marcação, com as tags, nas aves da região da Bacia Potiguar, que está por conta dos impactos com os parques eólicos, né, na área. Esse modelo foi impossibilitado de ser atingido, de ser replicado na área, por conta de dificuldades logísticas e por conta do altíssimo número de aves limícolas da região. Portanto, começou, então, um monitoramento em relação à identificação das áreas importantes no Nordeste para essas aves, áreas estratégicas, áreas prioritárias, áreas importantes para esse grupo de aves limícolas. E foi identificado, então, que a Bacia Potiguar era, sim, uma área muito importante para essas aves limícolas migratórias, portanto, né, que nascem no hemisfério norte, Canadá e Estados Unidos, e migram, invernam no território brasileiro em várias paradas, né, para alimentação e descanso. Next, please. Aqui é a história, o timeline do projeto Flyways Brasil. Então, de início, o monitoramento e a identificação das áreas, tudo feito baseado no protocolo ISS. Ao longo, depois, em 2018, 2020, foram identificados a necessidade de engajamento comunitário, além do monitoramento das aves, que continua até hoje, né? Até 2026, a gente continua fazendo monitoramento dessas aves para acompanhamento dessas populações e da oscilação, da dinâmica dessas populações. Mas o que foi acontecendo ao longo do tempo, até as datas atuais, foi o engajamento, o entendimento melhor do território, o entendimento de quem eram os stakeholders, quais eram as políticas públicas locais, tanto municipais quanto estaduais, que poderiam ser parceiras, nossos instrumentos de parceria para o engajamento, para a conservação, lembrando que o objetivo final sempre desse projeto é a conservação das aves vinícolas através da conservação das áreas importantes para esse grupo. Hoje, a gente, para resumir um pouco, a gente continua, como eu falei, com o monitoramento, mas foi identificado outras frentes de trabalho e estamos começando nessa área a fazer a restauração das áreas de manguezais identificadas juntamente com populações tradicionais, porque é uma troca de conhecimento entre o conhecimento técnico e o conhecimento tradicional local. Foram identificadas áreas importantes para a restauração de manguezais. Next, please. Esses são os principais pilares do projeto, né? Educação, ciência, engajamento social e o advocacy. E esse advocacy eu preciso comentar que ele acontece em níveis, tanto, como eu já falei, tanto como municipais, estaduais, federais e nível hemisférico também, são aves migratórias, né? Então, como já foi falado aqui por vários expositores, não existe fronteira, não existe país para essas aves, então a parceria, o trabalho conjunto com outras instituições é muito importante para que se garanta o ciclo migratório dessas espécies. Next, please. Uma das ações importantes... Next, yes. Uma das ações importantes...
2 minutos, tá?
Pois não. Uma das ações importantes foi o reconhecimento, junto à Menomet e à WISAM, do sítio da rede importante para as aves vinícolas da rede hemisférica, delineado pela linha branca, que é o sítio WISAM da Bacia Potiguar. Então, aí, com 22 espécies registradas, sendo 8 delas espécies ameaçadas, migratórias ameaçadas. Next, please. Next, yes. Aqui só um exemplo de como essa parceria funciona. Então, ao meio, aí nesse círculo central, a SAV, através do programa Aves Vinícolas com o projeto, faz a intermediação entre o Instituto Neoenergia com a população local, com a comunidade e com o poder público de várias formas. Próximo, next, please. Aqui um exemplo de ação junto ao poder público com um instrumento, né, de ação pública, o Plano de Ação Nacional das Aves Vinícolas, do qual a SAV tem assento, e o qual conseguimos, então, nos envolver diretamente nesses objetivos e ações mencionadas aqui, que fazem com que nós consigamos subsidiar, através dos nossos dados de campo, subsidiar essas políticas públicas. E aqui, nesses 3, principalmente as ações que levam em consideração, e fico muito feliz com a apresentação da Verônica anterior a mim, quando a gente fala de necessidade de mapeamento de áreas estratégicas para a conservação. Eu sei que já existem muitos instrumentos desse mapeamento, mas esse mapeamento às vezes precisa ser enriquecido com outras espécies, com outros grupos também, tanto na questão offshore quanto na questão onshore, em relação aos parques eólicos, fazendo com que essas informações consigam ser base para as decisões políticas, ambientais de todos os níveis, né? Então, aumentar o envolvimento através dos dados nossos também de campo e desse projeto e de vários outros parceiros também, levar as informações tanto do PAN, esse que eu estou falando, quanto da convenção aqui, porque estamos aqui, Ramsar também é importante, tanto para os técnicos municipais, quanto para os técnicos estaduais, para os gestores de unidades de conservação, os quais a gente se relaciona, são parceiros nossos nesse projeto. Next, please. Um exemplo disso, da atuação nossa...
Deixar, por favor.
Só um minutinho. Para finalizar, isso aqui é só um exemplo, a gente não trabalha no Flyways Brasil, no projeto Flyways Brasil, diretamente com monitoramento de impacto, a gente trabalha com levantamento de áreas importantes, mas esse trabalho do Flies Brasil nos deu a possibilidade de monitorar um outro projeto, as linhas de transmissão das cidades de Guamaré, Galinhos, e hoje em dia a gente continua fazendo esse monitoramento, culminando, por exemplo, na instalação, no aconselhamento de instalação de marcadores nessas linhas de transmissão por conta de colisão de aves limícolas. Next, please. Esses aqui são os nossos contatos. Eu agradeço muito a oportunidade e obrigada.
Obrigado, Raquel, pela apresentação. Thank you very much. I now invite to the floor Ms. Larissa Biasotto. She will present a tool from BirdLife International. She's from BirdLife International, called Mapping Priority Areas to Mitigate the Risk of Electrocution of Range-Restricted Bird Species, and an introduction to AVSTEP. Larissa, please, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Sorry, everyone. Larissa couldn't join us online, so we have a quick presentation from her that I'll be playing. Thank you.
Good. Manusvini, it's mute, no sound.
Is there sound issues? Sorry, I'm just going to play it again. Risk of electrocution years. Is it better?
Good.
Great.
Yeah.
Just to start to give an introduction about species, Lear's macaca is a threatened species. From Brazil, Caatinga, Sertão. They have a very small population, meaning with less than 3,000 individuals. Their main food resource is liquid fowl, and while they are foraging and resting, they are using the energy pylons, presenting a very intense social behavior on these infrastructures. What is causing them? Electrocution. So we have been studying electrocutions. We now know that we have almost 200 cases registered. Probably this number is much higher since we don't have all information about that. And the energy company is retrofitting pylons. They retrofitted around 5,000 pylons focused on the city. But electrocutions is still occurring, and they will not stop till we have an efficient plan for installing the appropriate mitigation measure, because their main activity area covers thousands and thousands of pylons. So it's urgent to map the risk of electrocution, to first study electrocution, then to systematize the installation of mitigation measure and test their efficiency. So we created a workflow to map the risk of electrocution that is bringing two main informations. First, we map the main activity area for the species, the susceptibility inside the main activity area. Using different variables like roosting and breeding sites, the location of key food resources, occurrence points. In parallel, we map the exposure. We bring information about the energy grid in the landscape and about the different configuration for each pylon. We cross this susceptibility and exposure map to create the risk of electrocution. We validate this map, what means we have a robust map informing about the risk electrocution in the landscape. And we also calculate and conduct a cost-benefit analysis, contrasting different scenarios to understand in which level we should mitigate pylons to reduce electrification, to have a big amount reduction in the electrification. So we know that we should mitigate around 40,000 pylons, the top risk ones, to reduce electrocution by 80%, the no electrocution 8%. Well, that's a very specific local case, bringing information about the only one species. We know the year's macaque is one of the priority species regarding electrocution. The sensitivity map, they over broad scales, and they are bringing relative bird sensitivity to different infrastructures. They are useful tools, particularly to avoid and minimize impacts, unlike mitigation hierarchy. And they are extremely useful also for decision making in the energy planning phase. One example of this broad scale tools is AVSTEP, our avian sensitivity tool for energy planning. AVSTEP is mapping sensitivity in different countries for different energy infrastructures, covering wind farms in onshore and offshore habitats, the photovoltaic solar and power lines, both transmission and distribution lines. Currently, we have 9 countries mapped: India, Nepal, Thailand, Vietnam, Kenya, Laos, Uzbekistan, Egypt. Last year, we launched Australia, and now we are working to launch Argentina, Philippines, Bangladesh, Cambodia, and Indonesia last year. So besides to bring information about how sensitivity is varying in the landscape in which itself 5 by 5 kilometers, very low sensitivity, very high sensitivity. AVSTEP is also bringing information about sensitivity species in each itself, with sensitivity scores and occurrence certainty. How likely is climate change. Regarding habitats, we also bring information about sensitivity signs, what means protected areas, key biodiversity areas, important colonies for birds, all the information we need to know in advance about the grids. Please feel free to go to our websites, avstep.wordlive.org, and there you will find also our manual that is bringing detailed information about how these maps are being created. So thank you so much.
I thank Larissa. Thanks, Manuswini, for sharing her video. I now invite to the floor Mr. Marcos Fialho from CEMAV, from the Brazilian CEMAV, who will present an overview of the Migratory Birds Report, a periodic publication by CEMAV from the Ministry of Environment. Fialho, please, the floor is yours.
Hello. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Bom dia, sou Marcos Fialho, do Centro Nacional de Pesquisa e Conservação de Aves Silvestres, o CEMAV. Há cerca de 12 anos foi publicada uma resolução pelo Conselho Nacional de Meio Ambiente, a Resolução 462, estabelecendo os procedimentos para o licenciamento ambiental da geração de energia por fonte eólica. Nesta resolução, é previsto que o CMBio, leia-se CEMAV, por meio de um relatório anual de rotas e áreas de concentração de aves migratórias, indicasse as áreas importantes para as espécies migratórias no país. Áreas estas para as quais seria exigido o rito completo de licenciamento ambiental. Aqui vem apresentar a evolução metodológica deste documento, que mobiliza boa parte da equipe do CEMAV. Na primeira edição, ainda em 2014, o compilado das áreas de concentração de aves migratórias foi gerado a partir de dados de ocorrência obtidos de diversas fontes: literatura, processo de avaliação de estado de conservação, a lista vermelha, o processo de elaboração dos PANs, Plano de Ação Nacional para a Conservação e relatório de anilhamento, e de pesquisa realizadas pelo próprio CEMAV. E as possíveis rotas foram apresentadas e definidas conceitualmente, como, por exemplo, a Rota Atlântica, mas sem a espacialização, dada a carência de dados. À direita, vocês podem observar o resultado final à época. Também são assinalados em vermelho os parques eólicos existentes. Então existentes. Em 2016, publicamos a segunda edição, definindo mais claramente o recorte quantitativo de espécies migratórias consideradas e avançando um pouco mais na metodologia. Foram utilizados 3 critérios para a definição das áreas. Áreas de concentração de indivíduos, seguindo a mesma lógica da edição anterior. Áreas de interesse especial para a reprodução de aves migratórias, informação obtida a partir da literatura e do conhecimento de áreas por técnicos deste centro. E áreas com alta concentração de espécies migratórias, ou seja, alta riqueza de espécies. Para isso, as ocorrências de cada espécie foram plotadas sobre uma grade com células quadradas de 50 quilômetros de lado, que cobria todo o país. E o critério de recrutamento da célula, como área importante, era a presença de 40 ou mais espécies migratórias. Novamente, à direita, podemos observar o resultado final do documento. Na terceira edição, de 2019, se consolida a lógica de composição de áreas importantes, tanto como áreas de concentração de indivíduos, como áreas de maior riqueza de espécies. Para o primeiro critério, se busca, então, atualizar a lista de áreas já conhecida, e para o segundo, se lança a mão do uso do software Zonation, um aplicativo de priorização espacial. As células da grade passam a ser a unidade de planejamento para o uso do aplicativo, mas visando a otimização das áreas recrutadas, a grade utilizada é reduzida para células com 5 minutos de lado, algo como 9 quilômetros. E o recorte de espécies considerado é aquele proposto por Somenzari e colaboradores. Embora para o uso do zoneixo tenhamos utilizado apenas 156 espécies, descartando espécies pelágicas ou incomuns. 2 conceitos são importantes para compreender a dinâmica do zoneixo. O valor de conservação, que é o valor calculado em função da riqueza de espécies da célula, ponderado por pesos atribuídos a cada espécie relacionados à sua vulnerabilidade às eólicas, como comportamento de bando ou planeio, e o seu estado de conservação, se a espécie é ameaçada no país e a sua categoria. E ainda pela representatividade relativa de cada espécie em cada iteração do software. O zonation vai, então, a cada iteração, eliminando as células de menor valor de conservação até a última célula. E aqui entra o conceito de meta de conservação. A partir dela é selecionado o ponto de corte, o percentual de área a compor as áreas importantes para as áreas migratórias por riqueza de espécies. Refere-se aos limiares mínimos desejados da paisagem ou da distribuição das espécies no resultado final. Nessa segunda figura, podemos observar uma simulação do efeito do ranqueamento obtido pelo zonation. Hipotetizando, por exemplo, que a nossa meta de conservação fosse obtida após o descarte de 90% da área remanescente ou das células com registros, no resultado final, as células garantiriam, em média, 60% das suas células com registro no resultado. Garantiria, em média, 60% de suas células com registros no resultado final, e com ao menos uma espécie mantendo todas as suas células concorrentes no resultado, e com a espécie de menor representatividade no resultado final do modelo, recrutando mais de 10% de suas células com presença. Para a última edição, ainda vigente, se atualizou o número de espécies migratórias e realizamos uma consulta à comunidade ornitológica para a revisão das áreas de concentração e eventual adição de novas. As indicações de novas áreas foram passíveis de validação pela equipe do CEMAV, e com relação à priorização espacial da riqueza de espécies, a grande diferença para a edição anterior foi o aumento do tamanho da célula da grade para 10 minutos de lado, algo como 18 quilômetros, pois observamos que a célula da edição anterior, dada a imprecisão das coordenadas das ocorrências de boa parte dos registros, não estavam contemplando plenamente as áreas desejadas em campo. A meta de conservação foi recrutar para as 15 espécies migratórias mais sensíveis, ao menos 70% das células com sua ocorrência. Lembrando, esse ordenamento foi obtido a partir dos scores calculados, dos pesos atribuídos a cada espécie, relacionados à sua vulnerabilidade às eólicas e ao seu estado de conservação. O que foi obtido com a seleção de 7% das células de maior valor, e que se traduziu no recrutamento médio de 80% das células com registros para o total de espécies consideradas. E ainda garantiu que, para as 14 das 16 espécies de aves migratórias nacionalmente ameaçadas, essas tivessem 90% ou mais de suas células com registros incluídos no resultado final da modelagem. À direita, vemos o resultado final da modelagem sobreposta às áreas de concentração de indivíduos. O resultado final, da direita, traz dois padrões óbvios. O adensamento das células recrutadas na região sul e sudeste do Brasil, que pode estar associado a um esforço de amostragem historicamente maior nessas duas regiões, e o recrutamento da maior parte do litoral brasileiro, o que é
Marcos,
justificado pela
interromper
abundância de registros
2 minutos para
ao longo
encerrar,
de
tá?
toda a rota atlântica do país. O relatório vigente está disponibilizado em uma plataforma online, de onde se pode baixar os arquivos shapefiles das áreas e obter outras informações, seja sobre a elaboração deste documento, seja sobre a geração de energia eólica. Depois eu compartilho no chat esse link. Por fim, o cenário atual vem mudando. Estamos trabalhando uma nova lista de aves migratórias para o país e pretendemos ainda este ano, após a publicação dessa lista, disponibilizar a quinta edição do relatório, que está seguindo a mesma metodologia anterior. Era isso, obrigado.
Obrigado, Marcos Fialho, pela apresentação. Thank you very much. I now invite to the floor Mr. Gonçalo Gomes from BirdLife International, IBAT. He will present a tool called Introduction to IBAT and how it can be used for renewable energy projects. Gonçalo, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes to present your tool.
Thank you, Andre. I'm going to do my presentation in Spanish, if that's okay. Gracias con todos.
Okay.
Gracias. Voy a presentar ahora la herramienta integrada de evaluación de la biodiversidad, IBAT. Esta es una herramienta virtual que ayuda a visualizar datos geoespaciales, generar reportes también relacionados a datos globales y confiables de biodiversidad. Y son utilizados para evaluar, para hacer una evaluación temprana de riesgos, impactos y oportunidades en un sitio o en diferentes sitios a la vez. AIPA también es una alianza de 4 organizaciones que son conocidas a nivel mundial por trabajar eh, con naturaleza y con biodiversidad, y son las 4 organizaciones que pueden ver en su pantalla. Y la misión de esta alianza de IBAT es proveer los datos, las herramientas y la guía a las organizaciones para poder actuar en los riesgos que puede haber relacionados a la biodiversidad, pero también identificar cuáles son las oportunidades que hay presentes, y también para generar fondos sostenibles para apoyar el trabajo de estas 4 organizaciones y mantener los datos de biodiversidad global. Next slide, please. Y este es el centro de IBAT. Las 3 bases de datos que están en la plataforma son la base de datos mundial de áreas protegidas y conservadas, la lista roja de especies amenazadas de IUCN y la base mundial de áreas clave para la biodiversidad. Estas 3 bases de datos son ya conocidas métricas y han sido utilizadas, por ejemplo, como métricas para hacer progreso en los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, los objetivos y las metas para el marco mundial de la biodiversidad como en Montreal, y cada una tiene información de dónde están localizadas estas áreas importantes para hábitats y para las especies. Cubren ecosistemas tanto terrestres como marinos y, como dije, tienen una cobertura global que ayuda a identificar dónde están estos sitios importantes para la biodiversidad. Next slide, please. Solo para darles un ejemplo de cómo se usa este tipo de información, por ejemplo, tenemos un ejemplo de Iberdrola, cómo utilizó la información en el caso de un proyecto en Brasil, cómo identificaron el área de distribución de una especie endémica de guacamayo en una región de Brasil, cómo esta información de dónde estaba potencialmente ubicada esta especie influyó en cómo ellos tomaban las decisiones en, por ejemplo, cómo diseñar su proyecto, cómo orientar las diferentes estructuras que están asociadas a proyectos de energía eólicos y a tomar decisiones con los equipos en campo para identificar cuáles son las especies que pueden estar potencialmente afectadas. Y esto pues cubre tanto especies no migratorias como especies migratorias, que toda esa información está disponible en la plataforma y le pueden ayuda a tomar decisiones de diseño y decisiones en el campo dependiendo del tipo de proyecto que se está ejecutando. Next slide, please. Nosotros también tenemos guías dependiendo de cómo, del sector y del proyecto. Para en el sector de energía renovable, también tenemos guías en cómo se usa esta información de biodiversidad, cómo las empresas los están utilizando, cómo diferentes organizaciones lo usan para tomar decisiones, para apoyar proyectos, cómo se puede utilizar, cómo se debe considerar, por ejemplo, áreas clave para la biodiversidad en el sentido de negocios, pero también interacciones que tienen diferentes organizaciones con el sector privado también. Y toda esa información ayuda a generar colaboración también. Y, por ejemplo, hay diferentes tipos de ejemplos de usos, como lo que ya se ha mencionado, la normativa de desempeño 6, que también incluye evaluar las áreas importantes para la biodiversidad en diferentes proyectos y para diferentes propósitos.
Gonzalo,
Ah,
tienes un minuto. Te queda un
sí,
minuto.
hasta ahí es mi presentación. No tengo una más para compartir mi contacto, pero voy a poner el contacto de la página web de IBAT y si tienen alguna duda, por favor, contáctenos y puedo proporcionarle más información sobre IBAT. Muchas gracias.
Muito-
Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Gonzalo, for su presentación. Now, I'd like to invite to the floor Mr. Enrico Bernard from Lavras Federal University of Brazil. He will present the impacts of wind energy on migratory bats in South America. Enrico, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you. I'm going to share my presentation with you. Just a second. Okay. I'll be talking today more about bats in Brazil, bats and wind energy in Brazil, and also a little bit about South America. Just in short, in Brazil, we have 9 families, almost 188 species and still counting. We have 5 threatened species. We do have evidence of bat migration in Brazil, but we don't have data, real data about migration. And part of that happens because, contrary to birds, we don't have a national banding program in Brazil yet. And this is a shortfall we have to fill in a real short time if you want to advance in a better understanding of bat migration in Brazil. As mentioned before, wind energy is very important for the energy scenario in Brazil. We already have around 1,140 facilities installed with close to 12,000 turbines operating in Brazil. Mainly, they are in 3 locations, very close to the coast in the northeastern part of Brazil, also in the northeastern part, but in the country, in the higher parts of the northeastern, and also down here in the southern part of Brazil. Those are the 3 main areas of wind facilities in Brazil. In northeastern part, we have 87% of the turbines operating there. So this is a very important area for working with bats and the interaction between bats and wind energy. I've been working with bats and wind energy in Brazil for almost 15 years now, and I've been addressing shortfalls in our legislature and the normatives. In short, Brazil has the wind farms in Brazil are most of them in ecological sensitive areas, as mentioned before, several IBAs, several areas already recognized at the Brazilian Ministry of Sensitive, but most of those areas, we have no data for bats. There are empty space for bats, no inventories, no long-term monitoring. So they are like data gaps. We do have normatives, but regarding bats, most of them are vague and soft. The main problem is 2/3 of the states where we do have wind energy facilities, they adopt superficially and simplified report, relatório ambiental simplificado, and most of these reports exclude bats from the sampling. This is really, really unacceptable if we would like to assess the impact of wind energy facilities on bats. Another problem is mortality is a real black box. We know that bats are dying in wind facilities in Brazil, but the data, the real data about mortality is behind the walls, is deep in the reports. There are no public and mandatory repository for that. It's really hard to find. Just 2 studies published data on mortality of bats in wind facilities in Brazil already. So we started working with detailed analysis on the wind energy hotspots to analyze the risk of collision between bats and those turbines, for example. So we focus here on the northeastern part of Brazil. More specifically, I'm going to present you an example from Rio Grande do Norte. The black dots are the turbines, right? We overlapped with cave roosts for bats. And you can see some of these roosts are very, very close to wind facilities. This is habitat loss. That is another very important issue regarding the interaction. Most of the landscape is already fragmented. And we did a simple analysis about the risk of collision. We calculated the rotor area of those sites and plotted on the map. We have pixels. 61 pixels here has more than 1 million square meters of rotor area. And we have pixels with more than 4.5 million square meters of rotor area, right? We also, with colleagues from CEMAV, Marcos Fialho, and other analysts of CEMAV, we included that data in official technical reports on migrating birds in Brazil. In the last edition here, we have including endangered birds and bats, right? And we did a simple analysis here, but it's very interesting. We plotted the grid with the number of square meters of rotor area in each one of these areas here. So we know already where are the most risky areas for bats and birds. Any species of bat or bird flying up to 200 meters, if you get into one of these cells, it'll be really hard for this animal to cross the cell without the chance of being a collision, for example. So now let's take a closer look of Tadarida brasiliensis, a bat that is included in the CMS Annex 1. Tadarida has a wide distribution in the Americas from central United States to Argentina. There are clear evidence of female migration during the autumn and winter, April to September. This data, this information, this evidence comes from Rio Grande do Sul, Uruguay, and Argentina. Colonies just disappear during the winter, during the colder part of the year, and return after the winter. We also have resident colonies here. Some studies.
Enrico, we have 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to finish.
Okay, thank you.
Some studies regarding the presence of the species show this distribution here, projecting a route, a migration route coming along the ends, and another migration route come this way here, right? In Peru, for example, they have refined studies showing that the Pacific coast has high suitability for the presence of this species, higher Andes and lower Amazonas, low suitability. So that's projected probably a Pacific route or Eastern Andean slopes or both routes. We don't know because we don't mark the bats and we don't capture them and we don't monitor this migration here, right? But is this Tadarida really absent from this large area in Brazil? I'm not sure. Could be like another migration route from here. And why I'm talking about that? Because considering another species of molluscid, we have evidence. This is the previous distribution of the bat. Then we start using acoustic monitoring, and we show that the bats, this species, Promop centralis, is present in this area of Brazil as well. So regarding fatalities, we already have fatalities reported in southern Brazil, in Osório, Rio Grande do Sul, for example. Tadarida brasiliensis is the most affected species there, and also the most affected species in Chile and Argentina as well. I would like to thank you for the opportunity. It's too fast, but it's okay. And I would like to leave you with this important paper we published last year. There's lots of information here, lots of suggestions how to improve the relationship between bats and wind energy, onshore wind energy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Enrico. Actually, I think that all presentations are being very good. We would have more time to spend here. Unfortunately, we don't have this time, but this will be recorded, will be available at the ETF website, as Manuswini could explain later. And we have time to access all presentations more calmly afterwards. So now I will invite to the floor Mr. Jay Diffendorfer from the U.S. Geological Survey. He will present a tool, the USGS tools like the publicly available US Wind Turbine Database and the US PV Database. Ms. Diffendorfer, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I just want to thank the interpreters. It's been wonderful. I'm sorry I don't speak Spanish or Portuguese, so I hope you can translate for me. Thank you. I want to talk just briefly about a few of the tools that we've been developing at USGS. All of these are publicly available and free. The first is this issue of mapping turbines. I see from the talks that Brazil seems to have an excellent turbine database, which I think is awesome. We started a turbine database in the US, 8 or 9 years ago, primarily to help us with our own wind wildlife research. But eventually we made it a publicly available tool or database. And we have been amazed at how much it is used, not just by wildlife biologists, but also by people in industry. The number one users of our data are industry, but also government agencies at the state and federal levels working on wind issues. There's been a lot of research used with these data on grid stability and grid issues, grid development. So the turbine data is highly useful. And we have a structure and a web viewer. The code for that web viewer is publicly available. We can get it to you. And making this stuff publicly available is critically important. So that's the main point there. And I'm happy to talk to anybody that wants to work on these issues. I also want to talk a little bit more about our work that we've been doing on population level impacts and thinking broadly about the question of how do we take fatality data that is being collected at individual facilities, sometimes at individual turbines, and turning that into sort of a broader understanding of cumulative impact. We're doing a lot of work on mitigation at individual facilities, but we don't fully understand how the cumulative impact of all these facilities affect species. So we've developed, Charlie Labuzetta is a postdoc at USGS, or was, and he has developed new methods for analyzing bat fatality data. We're gonna work to expand this to bird fatality data next year, or this coming year. And basically what we're doing is we're combining data, fatality data across multiple facilities. Instead of just using GenEst, we now use a broader statistical framework that allows us to get species level fatality estimates across a range of facilities, estimate factors that affect fatalities. You know, are turbines closer to water bodies more likely to kill bats than those that are farther away, for example. Develop risk maps, like you see down here in the bottom of the picture on, that's a risk map from Iowa. And we have developed the underlying computer code for this, for both the national bat fatality analysis and turbine level analyses. that are readily available. We're happy to talk to people about their implementation. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Appreciate your help. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jay, for your quick but intense presentation. I will now give the floor to Mr. Unai Martinez from Bioseco. Again, he will provide also information on tool and technologies, real-time in bird detection and collision avoidance systems. Mr. Unai, the floor is yours, please. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks a lot, Andre. I will try to commit to the timing. Thanks everyone for your time and for inviting us to this wonderful webinar. Well, Bioseco, it's a Polish engineering company. We have developed since 2015 systems that can detect, monitor, and stop through artificial intelligence birds during wind farm during operation. So through stereo vision, we are able to detect, to monitor, and to stop the turbine if the flight through the turbine is dangerous. In order to host and to Brazil, I will try to do the presentation in Portuguese, more Portuguese than Portuguese, but I will try to do my best. Manojvini, if you can pass to the next one, it will be great. Next slide, please. Então vou misturar com o português, espero que seja muito claro, ou vou tentar que seja claro o meu portunhol.
Can you play the video? Sorry.
Yes, Manojvini, can you play the video? Obrigado. Então, isso é data operativa na França. Nossas câmaras têm a capacidade de detectar uma ave. Fazemos o monitoreio delas. Essa ave foi detectada a 600 metros, mais ou menos. Se a ave se aproxima, nós temos a capacidade de mandar dissuasores, áudio e luz. Aqui no vídeo vemos como a ave vai se aproximar para o aerogenerador. Então, se a ave se aproxima a 200 metros, 300 metros, podemos lançar a parada automática do aerogenerador. Aqui vemos como a velocidade vai baixar e então vamos poder evitar uma possível colisão com o aerogenerador. A data operativa e como o funcionamento do sistema pode ajudar a proteção das aves. Aqui vemos como ela passa nas palas e evitamos a colisão com o aerogenerador. Essa é a base do sistema, a base é a estereovisão e com o monitoramento e estabelecer a distância 3D do aerogenerador com a ave, podemos ter uma reação que permita automaticamente proteger as aves e proteger também os sistemas eólicos. Então, esse é o equilíbrio na parte operativa para os operadores, mas na parte ambiental, porque podemos proteger as aves na fase de operação. Manojvini, se pode passar... sorry, I'm mixing with the Portuguese. If you can pass to the other slide, please, it will be great. Next one. Not this video. No, next slide, please. Yes, okay. Could you play it? Okay, perfect. Então, isso é os nossos últimos desenvolvimentos, são o reconhecimento automático das espécies. Com a possibilidade da PTZ, nós vamos poder identificar automaticamente as espécies no parque eólico. Eu sei que tem muita relevância no Brasil com as araras azuis, araras grises. Então, no Chile temos sistemas instalados para fazer o reconhecimento para o condor. Então, isso nos vai permitir ter uma reação exata para as espécies que nós queremos proteger. Então, essas são as últimas novidades da tecnologia. Agora temos sistemas no Chile, Espanha, França e Polônia com o reconhecimento automático da espécie e pensamos que faz muito sentido para proteger certas espécies objetivos, como pode ser o condor, a arara azul, nos países como Chile ou o Brasil. Manojvini, could you please go to the next slide.
Now 1 minute left.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. Next one. Então, a ideia principal é ter a capacidade com a inteligência a inteligência artificial, com o software, de ter a capacidade de saber quando o voo pode ser perigoso, detectar o voo, claramente, e depois saber se o voo pode ser perigoso para a ave, se ele se dirige hacia o aerogenerador. Então, esses são as últimas novidades na tecnologia de proteção das aves. Next one, please. Just finishing because I know we have time. Toda a data vai ser os operadores, as autoridades têm acesso a toda a data, então você vai poder fazer um monitoreio exato do que está acontecendo nos parques eólicos com as câmaras de detecção, todo o critério, o análise do que está acontecendo no parque eólico. Então a ideia é ter olhos no cielo do que está acontecendo no parque eólico. Please, just finishing. Temos operação nesses países, principalmente na Europa, mas no Chile também, espero que pronto no Brasil. E essa ideia do biocheco é proteger as aves e proteger também os ativos eólicos e fazer um equilíbrio com os dois mundos. And that's it. I think I've finished. Next one. Well, this video is quite cool if you want to. Our guys from Heredia are very creative. And this is real data from wind farms operation. You have different species, and the idea is to recognize automatically and to be with eyes able to protect the birds on the operation with real technology and efficient technology. Muito obrigado.
Obrigado, Nai. Thank you very much for your presentation. Impressive, this technology. Very good. And now we have our last but not least speaker, Mr. Dr. Shiloh Felton, actually Miss Shiloh Felton from Renewable Energy Wildlife Institute. She will provide the REVS approach using science and collaboration to accelerate responsible deployment of renewable energy to mitigate climate change and protect wildlife and ecosystems. Ms. Shiloh, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes.
Thanks, Andre. I'm really grateful to be here today to give an overview of REWI and some of the tools that we have to help mitigate the impacts of wind energy on birds and bats. Next slide, please. Just a quick overview. REWI has been around for about 18 years. We were established in 2008 as the American Wind Wildlife Institute, and added solar energy a couple of years ago and have been doing some research in that capacity and implementing our research framework on solar energy and wildlife issues. We're made possible by a partnership of NGOs, nonprofit organizations, non-government organizations, and industry partners in the wind and solar energy industry. And so we're able to do our research and also disseminate some of the research findings in the community through that partnership. Next slide, please. In the US, just to give some context, the main regulatory drivers that sort of drive what research we focus on are the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act, and then and as well as the Migratory Bird Species Act and the Endangered Species Act. So our focus tends to be around wind energy, tends to be on protecting eagles and threatened species of bats or sensitive species of bats, mostly under the Endangered Species Act, but also some migratory tree bats that are not protected under the Migratory Bird Species Act, like hoary bats, red bats, and silver hares that make up the majority of fatality records at wind facilities in the United States. Next slide, please. So this is the main take home. If you get nothing else from my presentation today, this is the most important thing. We have a technology catalog at REWI that we maintain that helps to provide many of the technologies available and under development to help minimize and monitor impacts to birds and bats at wind energy facilities. It's also been expanded to include solutions for solar energy as well. And we have a lot of resources on this site. The website's on the slide, and we also have a lot of webinars coming up to help delve into some of these technologies that are available. So stay updated for that. In the US, general guidance, if a facility is impacting endangered species of bats, is to implement curtailment on peak times at night. So generally during, late summer and fall, during the migration, and feather turbines when wind speeds are below 5 meters per second. But as we know, that can cause some energy loss especially if that curtailment is being implemented when bats aren't actually present. So there are several technologies available in the tech catalog that are considered smart curtailment, that try and minimize when curtailment exists or is implemented, and refine it to when bats are more likely to be present. Next slide, please. So in addition to spreading the news of the technologies available, REWI also helps to conduct experimental studies to test the efficacy of many of these technologies. And one example of that is the Vestas Bat Protection System, which uses, it's a algorithm-based strategy that uses wind direction and other environmental variables to help predict when bats are present, and it shows promise in using less energy, increasing the amount of bat or having the same level of bat fatalities as blanket curtailment, but losing less energy production. Next slide, please. Another example for eagles is the DT bird protection system that we tested along with HT Harvey at a couple of wind facilities out west. And this also shows promise. It's a video system that detects birds and either implements curtailment or a deterrent when that species is when a target species is detected. Next slide, please. Another big study that's ongoing that we're helping with is testing the efficacy of black blades or patterned blades on decreasing eagle fatalities at wind turbine or wind facilities. Pictured here is the pilot study that occurred at the Smola wind plant in Norway. We weren't part of that study, but we're part of a study that's led by Pacificor going on in Wyoming, and in partnership with federal agencies and other utilities and universities to test this on a grander scale in Wyoming. The American Wind Wildlife Information Center is also a big resource that that REWI maintains, so that we can continue to look at the factors that are affecting collision rates for different species at wind energy facilities. So we have 406 studies currently from 272 wind projects. These data are available by request. So feel free to reach out to me or our data manager, Ryan Butrin, if you have questions about this. It's a great resource, and we encourage folks to contribute to it. And then a couple other foundational resources are available on our website, and I'll wrap up there and leave my information on the next slide and take any questions as we have time. Thanks, folks.
Thank you very much, Shiloh, for your brilliant presentation. We had brilliant presentations today, and I would like to thank you all, the speakers, for these excellent presentations that we had. We now, as we have just 4 minutes, so I will suggest just to have one question. Actually, we have one question now, but before to direct the question, I would like to just reinforce that this is the first debate about America, renewable, and migratory species. I hope that we have the possibility to continue this debate in COP15 and beyond. So you are most than welcome to arrive in Campo Grande and start and continue to speak about this topic. So congratulations to everyone. And now I have a question to Ms. Maria Estela Nucci. After these brilliant presentations, Maria Estela, what is the one factor that really makes a positive difference in the development of a renewable energy project, considering all this information that we just seen today? Maria Estela, please.
Thanks a lot, Andre. I think that, we've heard recurring themes, right? So the correct siting of the project, the use of all mitigation measures to prevent and minimize the impacts and so on. Something that maybe I can add is really involving the right experts and specialists that have knowledge of the biodiversity values in those areas, and that have familiarity with the sector as well. I think that's really, despite all the resources we have and despite all the information and data that is available, that knowledge and that expertise is really the added value that we see when it is integrated into the development of projects. I think that is the one success factor that I would really encourage to be integrated in all projects.
Thank you very much, Maria Estela. And so, as we are concluding this webinar, unfortunately, we don't have more time. But again, I reinforce the need to start to keep doing the dialogue, not only in COP15 but also beyond, within the ETF. You are most welcome to join us as observers and also as parties in this task force. The richness of these presentations that we had today show that we have information, we have knowledge, we have science. The only thing that we need now is try to gather all stakeholders, relevant stakeholders for this topic, and try to keep working together. So that's my view after these brilliant presentations. So before we conclude, thanks again for all presenters, for all the audience that we had today. As Ivan said at the beginning, we reached more than 100 presents here today. And also, I would like to give a special thank to our partners that make this webinar possible: SAV Brazil, BirdLife International, the CMS in the avian unit in the person of Ivan. I would like to thank him to his support, and also a huge thank to Manusvini, who is our coordinator of the ETF and who make this webinar possible. Without her support and her energy, it would be impossible to run this webinar. So Manusvini, thank you very much. Thank you very much for everyone. And I hope to see you soon in Campo Grande to visit the Pantanal and to participate in one of our 5 side events that the ETF will have during the COP. So you are most welcome to join us. So I wish you a nice weekend and hope to see most of you soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.
Bye-bye.